Most of us believe that what we see is what exists. A table is solid. A screen is flat. A thought is private. A conflict is between two opposing sides. We move through the world assuming reality is broken into separate things, separate people, separate moments. We call this common sense. But what if this way of seeing is not neutral? What if it is already shaping the problems we are trying to solve? David Bohm believed that almost everything we call a crisis today, political division, social fragmentation, ecological collapse, psychological stress, does not begin in the world itself. It begins in how the mind fragments reality. And more importantly, in how we fail to notice that it's doing so. Bohm was not a mystic. He was not a motivational speaker. He was a physicist, born in 1917 in Pennsylvania, educated at the University of California, Berkeley, and later a close collaborator of Albert Einstein at Princeton. He lived through one of the most turbulent intellectual periods of the 20th century, the birth of quantum mechanics, the Cold War, political exile, and scientific controversy. But the questions he ended up asking went far beyond equations. He asked something far more unsettling. What if reality is whole, and thought is what breaks it apart? In modern culture, especially in America, we are trained to value clarity, certainty, and speed. We want answers quickly. We want explanations we can repeat. We want positions we can defend. But Bohm noticed something strange. The faster we think, the more confident we become, the more divided the world appears. Politics becomes left versus right. Science becomes mind versus matter. Psychology becomes self versus world. Even inside ourselves, thought divides experience into me and what's happening to me. This fragmentation feels normal, but Bohm insisted it is not natural. He believed that reality itself is not fragmented at all. What is fragmented is the way we think about it. And because thought rarely watches itself, we mistake its divisions for truth. To explain this, Bohm introduced one of the most radical ideas of the 20th century, the implicate order. Most of what we call reality, he said, exists in an unfolded form, what he called the explicate order. Objects, events, people, time, cause and effect. But beneath this surface, there is a deeper, hidden order, an implicate order, where everything is already connected, enfolded into everything else. He used the example of a hologram. If you break a holographic plate into pieces, each piece still contains the entire image, just with less detail. Reality, Bohm suggested, works more like that than we realize. Not a collection of separate things, but a single movement, unfolding itself in different ways. The problem is not that we don't understand this intellectually. The problem is that our daily thinking does not operate as if it were true. In everyday life, thought acts as if it stands outside reality, observing it from a distance. It labels. It judges. It compares. It reacts. And because thought does this constantly, we begin to feel separate from what is happening. We say, "This is happening to me. They are causing this. I need to fix that." But Bohm noticed something subtle and crucial. Thought is not just describing reality. Thought is participating in it. And yet we treat it as if it were neutral. This matters deeply in 2025 and beyond. Because today, thought moves faster than ever. News cycles collapse into seconds. Opinions are formed before perception settles. Algorithms reward certainty, not understanding. We don't just think more, we think more automatically. And automatic thought fragments faster than conscious awareness can keep up. Bohm warned that when thought operates mechanically, without observing itself, it begins to create problems that it then tries to solve, unsuccessfully. This is why so many modern solutions feel like they make things worse. More control creates more resistance. More information creates more confusion. More certainty creates more division. The system reacts to itself. One of Bohm's most unsettling insights was this: thought thinks it is independent. It believes it is freely choosing, freely judging, freely deciding. But in reality, much of what we call thinking is conditioned memory reacting to the present. Past experiences, cultural assumptions, emotional residues, unexamined beliefs. All of this moves automatically, and then claims ownership after the fact. We say, "I decided." But Bohm would ask, did you decide, or did thought decide for you? This is where Bohm's work touches psychology, neuroscience, and consciousness research in ways that feel uncannily modern. Today, neuroscience confirms that perception is largely predictive. The brain does not simply receive reality, it anticipates it. It fills in gaps. It smooths uncertainty. Only when prediction fails do we truly notice something new. Bohm understood this intuitively decades earlier. He saw that perception itself is shaped by expectation. And expectation is shaped by past thought. Which means we are often not seeing reality. We are seeing the continuation of memory. But Bohm did not offer techniques. He did not offer steps or hacks. What he offered was something far more difficult, and far more transformative. He offered attention. Not attention as concentration. Not attention as effort. But attention as observation without interference. He believed that when thought becomes aware of itself, not judging, not correcting, not controlling, a different kind of intelligence emerges. An intelligence that does not fragment. Bohm called this proprioception of thought. Just as the body can feel its own movement, he believed the mind could feel its own thinking. Not analyze it, not suppress it, but sense it as it unfolds. This is where the hidden order begins to reveal itself, not as a concept, but as a lived perception. When thought sees its own movement, it slows naturally. Not because it is forced to slow, but because unnecessary motion ends. And in that slowing, fragmentation begins to dissolve. This has profound implications for how we relate to each other. Bohm noticed that dialogue, as we usually practice it, is not true dialogue at all. It is discussion, literally breaking things apart. Each person holds a position. Each defends it. Each waits to reply. Information is exchanged, but understanding rarely deepens. Bohm proposed a different kind of dialogue. One where participants suspend assumptions. Not abandon them, but hold them lightly. where the goal is not agreement, but shared insight. In such a space, thought becomes visible. Collective patterns emerge, and something new can unfold that no individual could produce alone. This idea feels especially urgent now, because American culture is saturated with debate, but starved of dialogue. We argue faster than we listen. We react before we perceive. We defend identities rather than explore reality. And beneath all of it is fear, fear of uncertainty, fear of not knowing, fear of losing control. Bohm saw that fear itself is a product of fragmentation. When we experience ourselves as separate from the whole, everything feels threatening. But when wholeness is glimpsed, even briefly, fear loses its grip. The hidden order Bohm spoke of is not mystical in the conventional sense. It is not something added to reality. It is what remains when unnecessary division ends. It is the recognition that observer and observed are not as separate as we think. That thought is not outside the world. It is part of the movement of the world. And that awareness, when unfragmented, carries its own intelligence. This does not mean problems disappear. Bohm was not naive, but he believed that problems approached from fragmentation cannot be solved, only managed. True resolution, he argued, requires a shift in perception. Not a change in belief, but a change in how belief is seen. Imagine a familiar moment. You open your phone. You see a comment that feels dismissive, unfair, or slightly hostile. Before you finish reading it, something tightens in your body. Thought labels instantly. They're wrong. They don't get me. This is a threat. Emotion follows the label. Then comes the urge to respond, to correct, to defend. From Bohm's perspective, the problem did not begin with the comment. It began the moment thought fragmented the situation into me versus them, right versus wrong. If you pause just long enough to notice that movement, the labeling, the tightening, the certainty, something subtle happens. The reaction no longer owns you. The situation is still there, but the sense of being attacked begins to loosen. Nothing external has changed, but the way reality is being perceived has. So what does this mean for you, right now? It does not mean you must adopt Bohm's theories. It does not mean you must agree with his physics. It means something far simpler and far more challenging. It means noticing how thought moves. Noticing how quickly it labels. How easily it divides. How confidently it claims certainty. And seeing that movement, without immediately acting on it. Consider a moment when anxiety appears. Not tied to a specific event. Just a vague sense that something is wrong, that life is slipping, that you are falling behind. Thought rushes in to explain it. I should be doing more. I'm failing. The future is at risk. The body reacts as if this story were fact. Bohm would suggest that the anxiety itself is not the core issue. The fragmentation is. The moment thought divides experience into an imagined future and a deficient present, tension becomes inevitable. But if attention turns toward the movement of thought itself, not to fix it, not to reassure it, but simply to see it, a space opens. In that space, the story loses some of its authority. The anxiety may still be present, but it is no longer fused with identity. Again, nothing is forced to disappear, but something reorganizes. And when that space opens, something else becomes clear. The anxiety was never about the future itself. It was about thought projecting an image of the future and then reacting to its own creation. In seeing this, the mind no longer needs to fight the anxiety, because it is no longer mistaking the projection for reality. The future returns to being unknown, not threatening, just open. And the present moment regains its quiet solidity. In that seeing, something quiet begins to happen. Not a solution, not an answer, but a space. And in that space, the hidden order does not need to be believed. It can be felt as coherence, as connection, as a subtle sense that reality is not as broken as it appears. David Bohm did not offer comfort. He offered responsibility. The responsibility to see how we participate in the world we experience. And the possibility that, by seeing differently, we may finally stop repeating the same patterns, personally and collectively. So as you return to your day, notice where fragmentation appears. Notice how thought separates, defines, reacts. And gently, without force, see if awareness can include thought itself. If something in this episode stayed with you, even quietly, let it settle. There is no need to rush to conclusions or answers. As Bohm understood deeply, insight unfolds when thought stops trying to control it. This has been What We Are, where we explore the hidden structures behind perception, consciousness, and reality itself. Until we meet again, remember, the world will continue to move, to demand, to distract. But beneath the noise, the order remains. Whole, unbroken, waiting. Thank you for being here.